One of the most iconic characters in comics, if not across any medium, is Superman. The story of the Kryptonian-born, Kansas-raised Clark Kent becoming the savior of Metropolis and Earth has been told, retold, rebooted, and expanded upon for nearly 90 years. Now the character has expanded into a multimedia multiverse. There's multiple iterations across comic books, movies, television shows, and video games. Some great, some bad, and some weird. Despite the variations in time period, tone, medium, and quality, there's one thing consistent about the Superman mythos. He's strong, like really strong. Obviously, he's a being from Krypton, so his superhuman capabilities across all versions of the character aren't surprising. However, not all Supermen are created equal. Although no version of Superman could be described as weak, some versions of the character are more powerful than others. But what's the craziest thing a Superman has done? And which version is the strongest? Our first entry is the recently retired DCEU Superman, played by Henry Cavill. Across the original Man of Steel and the following DCEU movies, Superman had at least a hand in saving the world more than a few times. However, his biggest solo feat happened in his only solo outing. Man of Steel's General Zod, a fascist Kryptonian leader dedicated to taking over the galaxy. In this iteration, Zod is one of the only three beings more powerful than Superman. He had the fighting skills and the tools, primarily those made of kryptonite, to potentially bring Jor-El's boy to his knees. So not only did this version of Kal-El have to physically overpower Zod, he also had to reckon with killing the last connection to his home planet. What holds back the Superman from a higher spot is primarily a lack of material. The 10-year stretch of the DCEU only had a single solo Superman film, and while Civill's Superman had time to shine in Batman 5, both iterations of Justice League. Heck, Superman dies at the end of Batman 5. Superman partially at the hands of Zod, but even as a part of the team, the DCEU Superman has saved the planet enough times to earn him the spot of the 10th strongest Superman. The 9th strongest Superman is from the 2011 to 2016 run of DC Comics. While this Superman is one of the younger iterations, his age doesn't stop him from being powerful. What holds this iteration of Superman back is simply his age. This version of Clark Kent is a teenager, meaning he's both incredibly inexperienced and a bit more egotistical. A lot of his development across the New 52 storyline centers on his development from a brash teen to having the more conventional Superman persona. The culmination of this turn is his final stand against Vandal Savage, an immortal man with insane regenerative healing and combat prowess and a lot of children fighting on his behalf. In order to destroy the Savage family for good and end the Darkseid War, Clark takes on the power of the fire pits of Apocalypse, enhancing his solar-powered powers. While this extra enhancement to his Superman skills helps in defending Earth, it comes at the eventual cost of his life. While this does result in his early death, he does also save the planet. This gives him the 9th spot on our ranking. Next on our list is the OG, the one that started it all. The original iteration of Superman established that the boy from Krypton is a pillar of strength and integrity. This run also established the base of Superman's powers that he's largely maintained in later versions: superhuman strength, speed, and senses as well as flight and heat vision. While this seems pretty tame compared to anything modern, the Golden Age Superman was a novelty in the 1930s and 40s. Superman was the epitome of masculinity. Superman's Kryptonian physiology became a massive asset to humanity for this early run of comics. With villains like the mad scientist Lex Luthor before he entered his billionaire era, Mr. Mxyzptlk, the Ultra-Human Knight, Superman had a lot of formidable foes early on. And while said villains have definitely gotten more threatening over the last 90 years, the Golden Age of Superman provided a solid baseline for what a supervillain is. However, since the medium of superhero comics has developed so much, it makes the early days of Superman look tame in comparison. But there's enough feats of strength to place Old Man Superman at our number 8 spot. The next iteration is Superman from the 2011 Superman Beyond one-shot. This version, older and wiser, is on the verge of retirement. However, since the comic is a spin-off of Batman Beyond, the world can't afford to lose him yet. However, while his age isn't really a hindrance, his more jaded attitude certainly is. This is also the first Clark Kent on the list without his grounding force, Lois Lane, as it's implied she passed on. He's a lot less invested in being a hero. Just because this version of Superman is a bit older and jaded, doesn't mean he's a slouch. This Superman also has the ability to traverse the multiverse. This is a major asset during the Final Crisis storyline where the gods of Apocalypse created a singularity. As the only hero that can maneuver through the multiverse, Superman does a lot of heavy lifting in defeating Darkseid's forces. While he obviously has each universe's heroes to help fight against the evil gods, he's the only person with a full picture of Darkseid's plan. Additionally, his age hasn't slowed him down as he deftly wields his powers, most notably the super breath, to finally put an end to Darkseid, even at the cost of his own life. Next up is the Superman from 2013 to 2019 run of the Injustice continuity. This version of Superman is arguably a much more ruthless adaptation. Instead of being a protector of Earth out of the goodness of his heart, this Superman takes on a bit of a Batman-esque edge. His new motive is avenging the deaths of Lois Lane and their unborn child, partially caused by his own actions. Since this Superman is a lot more villainous, he's also a lot more ruthless. He's able to use his status as Superman and all the connections and charisma that comes with it to maintain a vice grip over Earth. Through this, he's able to weaponize the fear of both individuals and eventually the whole planet. This is an added boost of power on top of his Kryptonian physiology and all it provides. He also easily kills Ultraman, an alternate version of his son, and in an alternate ending, defeats the entire Justice League and brainwashed the entire Earth into following him. This twisted iteration of Superman is not one to be messed with. Exactly halfway through our ranking is All-Star Superman. While all iterations of Superman to a degree derive some of their traits from mythological figures, this version of Superman goes much further than most. Grant Morrison decided to frame this interpretation of Kal-El as a retelling of the Greek myth of Hercules. The bulk of the storyline is dedicated to his 12 labors, a series of superhuman tasks to improve the lives of both humans and Kryptonians. Such feats include conquering both Solaris and death itself, and curing cancer. What holds this version of Superman back a bit is the fact that he's slowly dying. Thanks to some sabotaging by Lex Luthor, Superman suffers from extreme solar radiation poisoning. He's running on borrowed time and is working against the effects of Project on his body. While his powers are enhanced by the solar radiation in the cells, it's a ticking clock for him to work against. And in the end, Superman may beat death, but he cannot outrun the sun. Next is the version of Superman from DC 1 million. The Superman of the 853rd century is essentially the step up from his All-Star counterpart. While the previous entry absorbed extensive parts of solar radiation, Superman Prime is now an extension of the sun itself. Now, every other version of Superman covered to this point has been operating on pure Kryptonian physiology. Superman 1 million has the aid of the Green Lantern ring, also imbued with massive amounts of solar energy. So not only is Superman basically the sun itself, he's also got a constant resource of solar energy. With so much available power at his disposal, Superman Prime can do much more than what his normal Kryptonian physiology allows him to do. This Superman could not only defeat death, but he reverses it by resurrecting Lois Lane, something several other Supermen on this list failed to do. He also has so much power that he's able to pass on small amounts to other beings. His one limitation, stemming from his multi-millennia status, is that he's unable to communicate with most beings of the 853rd century. While some of the prior Supermen were able to travel through time and space, this is the first Superman to change a major historical event. Red Sun Superman, presented and positioned in the center of the Cold War, changes the trajectory of history by being a weapon in the shape of a man. These feats include defeating his American-made clone, stopping a nuke from launching out Great Britain, and stopping multiple singularities to start. This is another instance of Superman's power going beyond his Kryptonian biology. His power, influence, and general demeanor allow him to become the leader of the Soviet Union. Through his leadership, he's able to make several key alliances, like with Wonder Woman, that would help him maintain peace and keep the super menaces in check. However, by the end of the series, he comes to appreciate living amongst humanity rather than ruling over them. The penultimate entry on our list is Superman from the Kingdom Come run of DC. This is another older, wiser Superman, much like the Superman in the Beyond run. With age, at least in Superman's case, also means more exposure to that crucial yellow sun. This means that crucial vulnerability to kryptonite that plagues nearly all versions of Superman has essentially been eliminated. It's good that his one notable weakness is eliminated, since this version of Superman has the largest conglomerate of threats to fight against. He also has a new generation of heroes on New Earth following in his footsteps. Once again, his charisma and natural leadership skills propel him to success, as he's quickly able to make alliances. This, and his set of normal Kryptonian abilities enhanced with age, allow him to prevent the destruction of New Earth. And finally, the most powerful version of Superman. The version of Superman on Earth 1 is the quintessential version of the character, the absolute embodiment of Kryptonian perfection. He's old enough to have a handle on his own powers and plenty of stores of solar energy, and young enough to still have a sense of optimism and joie de vivre. He has no death curse or extreme solar cancer hanging over his head, and Lois Lane is still alive. This is an unburdened Superman at peak performance. It's through this power that he's able to perform his most extraordinary feats. He's able to take on a cavalcade of villains, from regular faces like Lex Luthor to other Kryptonians that could feasibly beat him easily, like Tyrell and General Zod. He also halted Tyrell's plans to dissipate the Earth's core and spread his heat across the planet. Perhaps the absolute peak of his powers was his DIY approach to time travel. While other iterations of the character have time traveled in some way, Earth 1 Superman literally flew around the planet to turn back time.